elderly Indian Muslim's beard cut off in beating. Viral video on Twitter causes government crackdown. So there's two kind of aspects of the story that we're going to be covering. First, let's talk about the assault. On June 5th, first, before I begin, guys, just take a guess at where this happened.
Uttar Pradesh.
You guessed correctly.
Ding, 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 ding.
Unfortunately, okay. So on June 5th, an elderly Muslim man, Abdul Samad, was brutally thrashed by a group of people in Uttar Pradesh's Ghaziabad district. Abdul was on his way to the mosque when an auto rickshaw driver offered him a lift. Later, two more men got inside the rickshaw and told him to stay.
Wait, Suze, so just to clear, before you mention this news, we're getting reports in the live chat that people are saying this is actually fake news, not people who are like Hindu apologists. Somebody is saying that the guy who spread the news apologized for spreading fake news. So this might not be accurate news. We don't know. Have you?
I'm going to get into that.
Okay. Oh, you are. Oh, wow. Suze is on top of it. She knows about this. Okay. Go.
So, where was I? So they took him
rickshaw. You were at rickshaw.
Then they took him to a jungle and locked him up in a room and assaulted him. He was forced to chant Hindu slogans like Jai Shri Ram and Vande Mataram. The attackers accused Abdul of being a Pakistani spy. The police arrested 3 of the 6 perpetrators for their role in the incident, but ruled out any communal angle and alleged that the attackers, including Hindus and Muslims, were unhappy over the ambulance that Samad had sold them. The Indian government has revoked Twitter's intermediary status, accusing the platform of promoting communal enmity for not removing the video, leaving the tech giant open to a significant risk of mass lawsuits. So that's only the tip of the iceberg with the Twitter angle of this. But because of this video being on social media, now this is kind of begun the final straw in some ways of Twitter's status within India. Huge legal consequences that I can get into in a second.
All right. So can you respond to the fake news allegations?
So there are lots of... The police say that this is not anti-Muslim bigotry. It's basically the police are putting forth a certain story and actually filing police reports against journalists who are saying otherwise. So despite the fact that this man is being assaulted in a way that is like pretty specific to his religious identity, and you can see that on video, they're saying, oh no, this is basically a business dispute. This is because they didn't like what he sold them. So they're saying that that's not the intention behind this, and that because of these reasons, journalists who are reporting on this, independent journalists mostly, who have Muslim names, 6 of them were named in a police report where they are accused of promoting communal enmity, which has serious legal consequences. And they have fully revoked Twitter's intermediary status, and I can talk about what that means for hosting this.
Okay, so we have two different views in the live chat. Return to the monkey saying, so he's saying he's the one who's shouting fake news, fake news, fake news. He's like shouting fake news, and then he's like finally saying why he's saying fake news, saying it was a mixed Hindu-Muslim mob. He wasn't forced to chant anything. It was regarding a fake taweez. Taweez is like a what? Like a jewelry or something? Like what is that? Taweez? I don't know, something. But then Katie comes in.
It looks like an amulet to me.
Amulet. Okay. So Katie is saying this is not fake news. What the police is saying, the people who are saying this is fake news, they are the fake news. I think that's what Katie is saying, because Katie is saying the fake part is the police, not the news, but the police claiming that this was because of something else. In this case, selling an amulet that didn't work. All right, but Susie, you're saying that Katie is right, and the people who are saying fake news, they are not right, because the video shows that the attack on him was like looked like it was because he was a Muslim, right? Like the nature of the attack looked like that it has something to do with his Muslim identity. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
they're
saying?
beating him and trying to cut off his beard.
Right. Yeah, that beard part attack. What about the part that they say was he actually forced to shout? By the way, for people who don't know what Jai Shri Ram is basically the Hindus Allahu Akbar. Okay, just that's all you need to know. But was he? Is that that's the part that they're saying is fake? But we don't know, right? Yeah, exactly. Secular Rarity is pointing. Didn't they make him cut his beard out? There's video evidence of this, right? Yeah, so the beard cutting part makes it very suspicious that this had not anything to do with his Muslim identity. Okay, so I mean, India is such a the people who are defending Hindutva have made it very. Every time there's any news, there's like this accusations of fake news that just comes, and this is like a tsunami of people that claim that this is something that is fake. That makes it, and they don't even have to prove their case. They just have to make it confusing enough for people to just like back off. But yeah, so what, Rivka, you had your hand up?
So Susanna was talking about, so journalists have been charges. I was just looking up some stuff while you were talking, and apparently there's an actress who's had charges filed against her for tweeting about it or retweeting stuff, and she's the head of India Twitter.
There was a journalist who had a police report filed against them simply for tweeting a journal, a newspaper post, an article, for tweeting a newspaper article about it. So I was listening to Faye D'Souza, who is one of my favorite Indian journalists. Guys, go subscribe to her on YouTube. And she was talking about how there are lots of journalistic consequences to this as well. So there is this reporter, Mohammed Zubair, who is part of an organization that fights fake news in India. And he was targeted with legal consequences for tweeting about this story. And again, they're trying to say that he's promoting enmity. Well, his tweets did not actually mention any of the identities of the people, like religious identities of the people involved in these attacks. He used good journalistic language like allegedly, according to, as claimed, etc. And after giving it's in a thread, like several tweets about the victim's side of the story, then he tweeted the police's side of the story, like a balanced reporter. And still, the authorities, it's not just like some offended citizen, it's the authorities who are pushing for prosecution of these people for reporting on the stories, but they're not issuing these against main journalistic entities like Times Now India. They're doing it against specific, 6 specific journalists who are more independent, all of whom have Muslim names.
Right. Can I respond to something in the live chat? A few things in the live chat. Do we have time for? Okay, I'm going to do that. So, Return to Monk is saying, where am I saying that this that it is right or justifying it? I'm just saying that there is no commercial angle to this. Not ignoring the actual Hindutva mob attacks. I'm not doubting it. Okay, so Return to Monkey, he's backtracking what he actually, he just started shouting fake news as soon as we just read the title, just the title, and then 2 times after that. And now that we're actually giving more nuance, he's backtracking that, the shouting of the fake news allegation right when we were reading the title. Okay, now you're like, oh, okay, actually, let me now give you a more nuanced position. Why you were just shouting that fake news at the whole thing at the beginning? Now you're adjusting your position. Blank Name is saying Taweez is Islamic version. Okay, so the amulet that was being sold, apparently they're saying it's Taweez, is an Islamic version of the stone that brings luck and help you recover when you are sick. That sounds like shirk to me. Like, where are the Salafis when you need them? Here, let me go. All right, Secular Rarity to say, Secular Rarity is saying that's does look like an anti-Muslim attack. Katie, you want to read this one, Sus?
Katie is saying, yep, so let's say the violence started because of non-religious reasons. What happened in the violence was very much because of bigotry, beard cutting, forcing to chant, etc. That's a good point. So even if the reasons for this fight may not be religiously related, the expression of the violence was bigoted. That's a very nuanced take, Katie.
Katie is always
and Katie's on top of it. So, well, I want to talk about this Twitter angle because this has opened up a huge new era in Twitter's relationship with India. This what started the story that we were going to cover anyways about this assault has turned into this massive consequence for Twitter. So, Twitter's intermediary status in India has been revoked. So there were some new laws that were introduced in India in May, and they're applied to several tech giants, social media companies. And so to the point that I had friends in India like telling me I need another way to contact you because according to these new laws that just went into effect, like all of Facebook could be banned tomorrow. And that hasn't happened because they haven't gone to that level yet. But for Twitter, so intermediary status is there's a difference between an intermediary and a publisher. And Rivka's way smarter than me when it comes to law, so she could probably correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, according to the law, intermediary means that you host certain content, you host certain information, but you are not held personally responsible for this content on your platform. If you were, you'd be considered a publisher. Now, this is the case because this protects social media companies. It protects internet service providers from being held liable for any inflammatory or defamatory content that may be on their platform that someone else posted. You know, they control their platform to the best of their ability, but it protects them from just massive legal risk for hosting all this content that is very hard to monitor constantly. So they revoked this status, which basically opens Twitter up to massive legal consequences, a possible deluge of lawsuits against them because they no longer have this protection under the law. Now, I understand that there's a bit more that went behind revoking the intermediary status. It's a little bit confusing to me, including like the new law mandates that Twitter has to have an employee that is an Indian who serves as someone who works with the government to remove content from the platform more quickly. So from my perspective, this seems like a way for the government to have more control over a private company, one, and two, over a platform that many people use to express themselves and their beliefs and their social goals, right? I've seen a lot of really interesting arguments who were pro this decision from the government because they were saying they literally called Twitter's actions neo-colonialism. They're saying because Twitter's like, oh, you know, we don't want to comply with these government orders because we think that this is going to impinge upon free speech. And they're saying, who is Twitter to say what is free speech for Indian citizens? Okay, we are a sovereign nation that is beholden to the Indian public. You are an American foreign company beholden to your American shareholders. Who are you to decide what is and is not free speech in our country? You know, if you're not complying with the government, what the government asks of you, what are you above the law? You are within our jurisdiction. Like, are you trying to set a precedent that foreign companies suddenly do not have to be held to the same standard because you think you have more lofty ideals? Like, so hearing that argument was fascinating. I was like, whoa, when they literally said neo-colonialism, I was like, what?
Okay.
I was preparing for the show, listening to this, and this was on WION News, which I think is technically a Pakistani channel. But it was so funny to me when she said the word neo-colonialism, like she did the thing. Like I was yelling in my own room. But yeah, what do you guys think about this situation in India with Twitter in terms of this item.
Wait, so people are saying that Twitter is not being consistent, and that somehow, like, I don't know, where was this? Return to Monk said something, I don't know, about not being consistent or something, if you can find his comments, because he seems to be anti-Twitter on this as well. Like, do you understand his arguments? Because I lost it.
Well,
Oh, here.
okay, people either say that Twitter is inconsistent because of differences in how they apply rules in the situation in America with the events at the Capitol, like the insurrection, that there's different standards going on in terms of U.S. politics and how that's enforced on their politics versus India. I think that there actually is inconsistencies. I think that they were way worse in the American situation. And
Right.
you saw a ninth of the backlash that you saw in India for flagging a post as manipulated media. However, I will actually say that, yes, they are inconsistent. We all know that Twitter is inconsistent with applying this type of rule. We are
Excuse
direct
me.
victims of this.
Excuse me.
Wait, not only
Yeah.
that, wait, no, let me finish. You made me lose what I was going to say. Damn.
No, okay, sorry. No, you're saying not only we know that Twitter is inconsistent, and not only.
Oh, this is something that people say in American politics and how Twitter applies rules and penalties against politicians here. They're like, you do this completely inconsistently. This is a common complaint. So, yes, Twitter is inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, me and Susanna should know how inconsistent Twitter is. We both have lost our Twitter accounts because of these inconsistencies. But to claim that this is imperialism, that's like laughable. Katie is saying, do you want to read what
Katie is saying, isn't it amazing how the regressive left in the first world ends up aiding the far right in the third world? Well, Katie, those comments that I was saying about the neocolonialism, this was for Anchor that I was watching on YouTube. What is this? WION News? Isn't WION a Pakistani channel? Like a Pakistani right-wing channel? Wait, no. WION is an Indian multinational English language channel. Okay, so it's an Indian channel. Never mind. I got confused with something else. But it was very interesting to hear like the right-wing pro-government argument on that, which I hadn't before.
Wait, there was another good comment. Here, there was another good comment here. I lost it. Okay, here, read this one.
Return to Monkey is saying, again, Twitter is not consistent. It even let Shala Rashid, a suspended account, make another account within one day with a different username. Yeah,
Okay,
this is a common complaint.
Yeah, and again, this doesn't make this not fake. This doesn't make any of this fake news. Like, we're switching completely to all of a sudden now blaming Twitter for having inconsistent rules, which is like, yeah, newsflash. Like, who doesn't know that? And also, like, I don't know what people expect. Of course, like a company that is based, like, headquartered in the United States and is being pressured by different groups in different ways. Like, for example, one reason why Twitter is like banning me and Susanna, even though we didn't break any of their rules, and some people who do break Twitter rules are not even banned, is because of the different pressure that Twitter as an institution experiences from different sides. This is not, people are like, oh my God, they're not even following their own rules and they're being inconsistent based on their community standards. Like, what do you guys expect? Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't complain and fight back, but like, really, is this like, you think that's like a mystery? Like, they compare it to what happens in United States, like how Twitter is being more harsh on the same type of activities in the United States. Do you not think that the company that is based in the United States, the politics and the powers that be are going to be able to pressure this organization at its core more than some institutions or some groups of people within India? Like, of course, right? Like, again, when we see, like, people think like they have managed to uncover this like hidden secret that, oh, these are the community standards of Twitter, but it's not being applied everywhere evenly. Like the fact that you thought that that's going to be that you even expected that means that you're so naive that you don't understand that most community standards are applied based on, like a lot of them, not most of them, are applied based on the pressure that different parties could exert on the entity that is enforcing these rules. Again, that's why me and Susanna were banned, and some people who are actually send us death threats are not. Susanna, you have your hand up.
Well, in terms of this whole thing about like, oh, Twitter, India's a sovereign nation. How dare you like deign to, know what is the authority of rights for Indian citizens? You're not beholden to them, et cetera, et cetera. Part of the reason why this not complying with certain government demands of a social media company is something that we hear about so much and is such a contentious issue within India in particular. We've seen this increasingly more so in the last several months. I want to just read a small excerpt from this report called published at the Brookings Project, Anti-Blasphemy Offensive in the Digital Age When Hardliners Take Over. Read this report if you can. But corporations are not expected, nor should they be encouraged to set international human rights standards. Those have already been defined. But social media networks have committed to respect those principles through membership with the Global Network Initiative, or GNI, of which Google and Facebook are fully fledged members. The GNI, sponsored by firms, NGOs, and universities, was created on a set of principles to prevent internet censorship and protect privacy rights. So several of these big social media companies have actually signed into these coalitions, cooperatives, and almost covenants that they will look towards international law in terms of whether they have to comply with government demands in terms of removing their content.
Yeah, but they say that, but at the same time, they want to make sure that they don't poke at the bear, which are governments, so much that they're going to lose their market share, right? Or even if they're not going to lose their market share, to create very unsafe conditions for their staff in those countries. Like they could say like, oh, they could even say that, they could even wish that, but it's not going to be, sometimes these things are not going to be able to, they're not going to be able to achieve it. Rivka, did you want to add anything? Are we good?
Oh, I was just listening to this because Susanna's a little bit more versed about this. I just wanted to bring up that article about the woman who's the head of the Twitter there got in legal trouble for retweeting something else. And it's a really interesting thing because a lot of these things that happen with social media and privacy and who's responsible, etc., all people are coming up with after. Nobody spent any time thinking about how this might affect laws or people or content prior to it. And so it's this whole catch-up game. And at this point, when you have all this money and advertising and all these things, that's who's really running it. And so, yeah.
Ayan is saying Susanna is a legal expert in India. She's becoming closer and closer to that.
No, I'm sure that I got things wrong when I was discussing exactly the tension.
But it's still pretty impressive.
The state in Twitter right now, because there's stuff that confused me, like the establishment of this officer that has to be employee, that has to be a citizen, like they're in failure to comply and they're going to court. There's more about this that I couldn't understand well enough to communicate to you today. So I'd recommend Faye D'Souza because she's great.
All right. I just want to quickly highlight some other comments before we move on. Satish is saying Twitter should leave India. Modi and his party needs Twitter more than India needs Twitter. Satish, that is such a naive thing to say. I don't even understand if you believe what you're just saying. You are saying Twitter should let go of the second biggest populated country in the whole world, like give up
their second largest market.
Let's just give up billions and billions of dollars because this is it's inconvenient to work in India because of a few legal issues. So let's just say goodbye to a giant market. Are you serious? Are these serious suggestions? Come on, guys. Come on, like of course not. Like anyways,
But what if they did, Armin? What if somebody said, you know what? F you guys. We're not going to censor our content because you want us to. We're leaving.
I mean,
people-
what if there were unicorns who?
No.
put
Let me just
apple juice?
finish. Let me finish. I think people would hail them as,
No.
people standing up for, against censorship and for free expression. Honestly, I do. I'm not sure. I'm not saying
Can
that
you
they
sell
will.
those hails? Can you sell those hails?
If they didn't have offices in India, they wouldn't be subject to their jurisdiction.
Right.
Yeah, but they could
But
still
they
have Twitter in
do,
India.
so they are. But my
Yeah.
point is, I don't think that your point is not necessarily correct. I mean, that's what's motivating most of this. But I just think it's interesting as if they did say, you know what, we're removing our offices. We're not doing, we're not going to be pushed around by people. I just think it's interesting that people might say, yeah, they're standing up for, free expression.
I don't think there's a market price for people shouting yay, and I don't think they could sell that for money, right? And that's what it comes down to. It's a for-profit company. I don't think
Exactly.
unless they could put a market value on people being like, yay, good job, Twitter. Like there needs to be the market value of people saying, yay, good job, Twitter, has to be higher than the entire market of India for Twitter. Like it has to be able to compete with that for that to be, and I don't think it is. I don't think if you do a cost-benefit analysis, the entire world cheering on India is not going to bring them more money than them remaining active on Twitter. Like they would they have people who do financial analysis on the smallest little thing, so they would know. Suze, you had your hand up?
Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, I mean things that are nice that might be like nice to do. Would it be nice to do that? Yeah, like I mean that's not what corporations work on. Like that's not how giant companies base their decisions on, like making it, even when they make statements on things, even when they jump on movements or they take a position that seems like they're sticking it up to the bullies or standing for what's right, it's because they did a very detailed calculation on the cost benefit, did a cost benefit analysis on whether or not this will what this would mean for their bottom line. I mean, there's a reason why they're giant companies. If they weren't thinking like this, they would remain small companies. They would not become giant corporations. That's how they operate. All right, we just read just one more comment while I get the next news.
Katie is saying the government is trying to promote this alternate app called Coup app. It's basically a far right breeding hole now. Yeah, and I know that the Indian government is also trying to like sell this, maybe not literally sell, but like pitch this to the Nigerian government right now, which the Nigerian government has had lots of increasingly escalating actions against Twitter. They banned all of Twitter recently because I think they deleted a tweet from the president, and it's had huge consequences. So these apps that are more highly monitored by the government are going to be increasingly popular.
They're trying to copy China. Can you do a China in India? I don't think you can. It's not, you don't have
They're
that much
trying.
control. Yeah, they're trying, but it's going to be, you haven't. The great thing about India, guys, I'm complimenting India, okay, is that the government hasn't been able to train its people to be obedient, little followers that just keep their head down on such a large scale. Like the level of control that we have in China, we don't have in India. So as oppressive as these people want to become, or as anti-free speech, I have a lot more hope for the rebellious nature of the new generation of Indians that I have for the future of China. At this point, things could change, right? So as much as we have bad news about India, I don't think India can do a China in India. So Iran might, but India will not get there. Rivka?
I was thinking about what you were saying about that, and kind of almost more of a comparison to some of the USSR states that had state-run media. that controlled it and what was allowed to be said or what version of things. You know, I know Ceausescu was famous for not letting information in, you know, in the last ends of Romania. So these apps that are controlled by the government, it's like a state run media that is going to dictate what people see and hear and from what perspective, which is very similar to, in some ways, some of those USSR state chapters.
India is plugged to the international world, okay? It's fully connected. It's completely like the money flowing in and out, the services that are being sold in India. You can't unplug India from the world. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you can bet, like India itself will invent new filters that is more effective if they ban all of these accounts. Like there will become such a wide use of filters. Like you cannot. This is, again, China managed to build everything from scratch, everything internally from scratch. India, the world needs India, and India needs the world. And India is so connected to the rest of the world, and it's going to become more and more connected. It's such a source of wealth and prosperity for its people, and for a source of prosperity for the rest of the world. And as more people coming out of poverty in India and getting connected to the internet, this is a tsunami that is coming in India that you cannot undo it. No, I'm glad to say that I don't think any authoritarian regime is going to be able to stand in front of the Indian people and the wealth and the prosperity and the freedom that they're about to bring to themselves and to the rest of the world. Rivka?
I just wanted to say that I thought that your point was really well taken about, oh, well, they'll just invent some way around it. Right. That's usually what happens. You know, every thing that somebody who's authoritarian or draconian tries to stop, it breeds this whole new inventions of ways to get around it, using the creativity of the people in the country. So, yeah, I think that that's exactly what will happen.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, you know, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.